markets, manufacturers must comply with each market regulations. And in our current design, the safety is mainly already in there, so the system components fulfill the safety specifications. But what is missing in current Open Rack version 2 is EMI. And there's a kind of two major regulations. So European Economic Area is a CE marking, and in a US market there's a federal FCC, and rest of the world pretty much follows those specifications. Of course, there's not national deviations about that. The CE marking, in addition of the EMC, there's a safety and hazardous substances compliance. But what we are looking really is the EMC topic in here. Okay, when we are talking about the EMC design, there's a challenge, design challenge to fight against the increase in frequency spectrum. So currently, what we are using the existing platforms is 10 gigabit Ethernet. So, but in our next generation, we are moving to use 25 gig service technology. So if we are looking the field wavelengths, so we can recognize if you have a 10 gig service, so the wavelength is 2.9 centimeters. When going to use the 25 gig service technology, the wavelength is 1.2 centimeters. And that is practically meaning that if we want to build the service system utilizing the 25 gig service technology, most likely there's spectrum components inside the enclosure that we need to alternate the 25 gig components. So it is meaning practice in max 2 millimeter openings in EMI shield. Of course, this can be implemented using the honeycomb or multiple layers of the perforated metal. We are going to introduce the EMI shielded doors, possible the side panels, and cable openings to the Open Rack design. And one thing that we need to fulfill at the same time, the seismic compliance. Now, if we talk about the seismic compliance, so you can see the global seismic hazard map in here. So this map is showing the 10% of the probability of exceedance of the certain ground acceleration within the 50 years time period. So look at the green areas, those are low risk areas. The red areas, reddish areas are high seismic risk areas. And about 10% of the surface is occupied high or very high seismic hazard zones. And about 70% of the landmass lies in rather low hazard zones. But if you are looking at the areas where is the high seismic risk zones and figuring out where is the biggest cities in the world. So you can see that in the Middle Europe and Asia and US coast is very high zones, and also substantial portion of the largest cities are in this high risk zone. And also, if you are looking the telco use cases, also they realize the dense telco networks. So this is really important for the telco use cases. What are our targets in seismic compliance? So we are going to test the compliance against the NEP's GR63 specification, and there's two tests. So there's a static horizontal pull test criteria and also the shaking criteria. And in our case, we calculated roughly 850 kilogram IP load installed on the Open Rack. Target is to fulfill NEP's Zone 2 compliance with the single rack design. And Zone 4 compliance, 2 or more racks bolted together. And again, pointed earlier already, so we need to fulfill EMC and safety criteria at the same time. Okay, then about the minus 48 volt feed option. In our customers, telco operators need to utilize the existing site infrastructure. And they, typically those central office locations are using the telco 48 volt DC systems. And what is also pushing this direction, that telco operators has a limited possibilities to build new data centers in city areas. Okay, our target is to introduce minus 48 DC power feed option for the OCP. And this is really exciting that yesterday we heard about from the Google that they are targeting the minus 48 for the also the OCP. So I think that we have a common targets, so we can maybe define that kind of structures where we can tackle both use cases. One option is what we have initially on mind to develop minus 48 to 12 volt power cell. But of course, if there's coming case that there will be minus 48 volt in current power, so that may change this approach. But anyway, currently we are targeting to have redundant feed cables and power cell with N+1 redundancy power modules, and targeting the total 25 kilowatt rack power divided to 12.5 kilowatt power zones.
there be just one feed within the rack itself, or would there be?
Probably more than one, because the current will be high. So to reduce,
but non-redundant.
Redundant feeds.
It would be redundant.
Yeah, and but also those redundants. For example, it might be wise to do, for example, with 4 feeds to reduce the cable size. And for the baseline, we are going to take as European telecommunications standardization DC specs. So there's one that ETS 300 132, which defines the electrical characteristics of the telco DC system. And we need to apply also other standards as earthing and bonding standards related to telco devices. And target is to certify that the DC power cell has a standalone component as well. Okay, finally I'd like to summarize the targets. And the first was is really to bring an OCP rack variant that fulfill the regulatory EMC requirements. And that really enables that the OCP products can be sold commercially in multiple market areas. The second topic was that we are going to introduce better seismic compliance, and that is really expanding the OCP market areas into seismic risk zones. That also the biggest cities belongs to. And finally, we are going to bring also the telco 48-volt DC option to the OCP. So if you have now any questions, so I'm happy to answer those.
I have one.
Okay.
Sorry, to get you the mic.
It's because Open Compute is not a standards body; it's an organization to share proven designs. Do you see, a company, maybe yourself, that's developing one of these racks that you talked about today, and potentially making a contribution of that design back to the foundation?
Yes, definitely yes. So first, kind of. We define the concept, and when we are moving ahead to bring it into the Open Rack project and pushing to the community.
Just a suggestion: you may want to use this this community here to seek out traveling partners and find out how many. Is there other carriers that are interested in a NEMS compliant rack, try to build some momentum. I think it's one of the reasons that Open Compute has been successful is that we can share common designs across across various cloud partners, cloud suppliers,
yes,
cloud end users. And I think we have to do the same thing in this space: is find out who your fellow travelers are that can align to a common product and drive demand and share in the mass production of a product.
Yeah, definitely so. So the target is to bring it to the community and share the design.
Do you have any design that you can share now?
No, not yet. So the project is starting. So we are early phase.
For the 48-volt feed, will you be using a connectorized connection between the rack components and the power distribution rails
inside the rack.
inside the rack?
So the idea is really use the existing minus 12 volt current bars behind the rack. So not touch to those. Just introduce new power self variant that's converts the 48 to 12 volts.
And that connector is suitable for 48 volts.
Yeah, it is. I can answer that. I authored the original Open Rack spec 4 years ago. So
Yeah.
it should be sufficiently rated for 48 volts.
Okay. If no any other questions, thank you.
Thank you. So let's see, I guess we have a few more minutes of this section. Right? Is this one
Still one.
till 1?
Yeah.
So maybe now, following
Sorry,
this,
goes till 12:30.
this one goes to 12:30 to 1.
Oh, yeah, okay, so 1 o'clock, yeah.
So why don't you talk about the charter for a minute? That
Oh, you want
Yeah. This brings up one of the items that we can discuss, both the power, some of the rack things, NEBS compliance, those kind of issues. And so we need to formulate the charter so that we can incorporate these kind of work items in. And so, it's kind of we'll be discussing it on the list after the summit, and then having the conference calls to get those things fleshed out so that we can address those items as work items for our group.
And I think that one is to bring also the Google guy that discussion. So
Okay. So I think some of that is probably in the rack group, right? I know you mentioned you wanted to do some of this work in the rack group as well.
I mean, okay, it depends on, but current it seems that it is fitting the rack group.
Right.
Let me give you a little bit of background.
Okay.
So about a year and a half ago, there was, and just my day job allows me to talk to a lot of the carriers and telcos around the world. And there was clearly a lot of interest in open compute at that time. And as a foundation, as a member of Open Compute, and actually as part of the incubation committee, I put together a request to the board to actually form this work group. And and so I had written a very lightweight charter to kind of outline what I thought this work group would do. And my vision at that time was that we would be able to bring together, people from the carrier and telco industry, give everyone a forum to share ideas and express themselves and talk about, some of the unique requirements or features or needs that they have and of this industry, and vet out those requirements and be able to look across the other work groups, those being the server network, Open Rack, and even the CNI work group, and understand what they're doing. And they're clearly off, doing common hardware designs and sharing those designs for the cloud market, and understand how we can leverage that and apply that to the carrier and telco business, and be able to put together more or less kind of a one voice request back into there and say, hey, if we can add tip requirements onto an Open Rack and maybe simple features in the base of a rack, that all of a sudden now we have more community members that can adopt and use that piece of hardware, that contributed design into this segment. And so that was my original proposal, and that's what that proposal obviously was satisfying enough that the board said, okay, let's charter this work group. And so one of the things that we have to do moving forward is to go back and solidify what that work group charter really is, and what those kind of boundary conditions are, what we will include and what we won't include. And Craig and I happened to be grabbing lunch a few minutes ago, and we were talking about what those possible boundary conditions are. And I think our thinking is that we don't want to establish any artificial boundaries on what to include or not to include, but instead let the community and let contributions drive that. And so my question back is that, does your team have a design that they're going to contribute back or could contribute back in the future that has some of these requirements into it? Because that would be an example where those contributions would kind of set the stage and in terms of what we include and what becomes part of that that the shared products, the shared vision for the group.
Definitely, that is the target.
Yeah. So to that end, we eventually have to write a charter and get that finalized. That's the bylaws require that we do that at a work group level. We've been delinquent on doing that for a year because we just didn't have the momentum within the work group. I think in the last 3 months, we get requests to join the mail list. We get probably 1 or 2 requests a day now, and that's been going on for about 3 months. And so we now have a few hundred people that are expressed interest. I mean, there was even half a dozen last night that came in, and so we're starting to see more and more momentum. This show, I think, will kind of put us, finally get to the point where we have enough momentum that we can get good input and actually start to build a charter.
Yeah.
And going forward. But the reason I bring up the history is that I think one of the things we want to do is vet out those needs and find out who those travel partners are and who who can share that a design and not only share a design that they have, but is there other carriers that would adopt that? And if we can get 2 or 3 or 4 carriers to say this is a really good design idea, partner with a supplier or suppliers that are committed to go build that, then we can take that design and contribute that to the foundation, or go back to the Open Rack work group and say, hey, by the way, we have a couple of rack suppliers that are interested in building this. We now have end users that are going to drive the demand. So we have the demand side fulfilled, we have the supply side fulfilled, and then see how we merge those requirements potentially with Open Rack, so we can literally get to the point where it's one common rack between cloud and telco. Okay. Yeah. More questions? Yeah. Thanks a lot. Any more questions for the group?
Okay, thank
We
you.
have another presenter at 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
Are you ready?
I'm ready to go.
Tom's ready to go.
Well, I think let me get the thing out switched over. Okay.